Hi there. Thank you for downloading, listening to, and watching the Lean Into Artcast. This is a show where a couple of visual storytellers get together and take a walk around various topics that tend to cross your path when you go on this adventure of communicating with images. We think hard about this stuff, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Drozd. I'm a cartoonist and teaching artist, and the other host is named...
Hey, I'm Rob Stenzinger. I am a user experience designer and interactive maker of games and stuff, and I teach those things as well.
Good to see you again, Rob.
Good to see you.
We're closing in on the end of 2020. Not to belabor that idea, but rather than do a sort of like reflection on the year or planning for the next year, we do that a lot of that on the show. You came up with a fun idea, like let's end on a high note of just celebrating making things, focusing on one of the tools that we've been using a lot lately. And what tool is that?
Well, it's Clip Studio Paint. It's back again. I mean, if you're an illustrator, you do something to make visual stuff, and it's you do that in any kind of like handcrafted way. Clip Studio is fantastic, and it obviously, if you do comics, it's thought of you. It's thought of you a lot, where other tools have sort of thought of the general idea, or maybe they thought of maybe photography more than other tasks. But nope, Clip Studio Paint. If you're a comic artist and illustrator, it's got you in its forefront. And are we sponsored by Celsius, Jerzy?
We really should be. We really should be. That's something that I think I need to reach out to them and say, like, hey, you know what? We've talked about your application quite a bit on this show over the years. And that's to say, like, I put out the call a little earlier today. If you're curious about this application, you know, like I get asked this a lot when I do live streams. I do drawing live streams every once in a while, and they're like, "Oh, which tools do you use? Which brushes do you use? Which version are you using, and why?" So that's another thing. Like if you're kind of curious about Clip Studio Paint, this is going to be a good one for you because we're going to go through, I don't know, as many as we can, sort of like things we've been doing in Clip Studio Paint recently, and encapsulating it as like a feature that we really dig. An aspect of the application that makes us really happy. So are you ready to dive into it, Rob?
Yeah, let's go there.
All right. And that's what happens next. Okay, so
honestly, I'm happy to be the trainer or the Pokemon, either way, in the ideal situation. So our audience could be all Pokemon trainers, and all of a sudden they show up and have lots of tips, by the way, which we're welcome to amplify that signal and talk about that, try to work that in as well.
That too. So people who are watching live, if you want to comment some of the things that you really enjoy about this application, let us know in the chat. We're watching the chat. Also, you can join us in the Lean Into Art Discord. The invite link is in the show notes for this episode and every episode. Join us there and go into the comments channel and let us know what you are enjoying about Clip Studio Paint recently. Rob, I would love to hear what you've been working on in CSP. Because I share my drawing live streams all the time. I feel like I'm spending a lot of time with CSP, but I want to hear how you're using CSP.
Yeah, and for me in my role in this show, I'm not someone who is like teaching with Clip Studio Paint day in, day out. So you'll see me like looking for like where'd I put my keys kind of thing. Like and that's how it works. I'm working behind the scenes to make assets for video games and illustrations for articles and book I'm writing on and all that, and visuals for workshops. And so that it's I'm planning on doing more streaming. I think that's a great idea. So I hope to get more practice at demoing with this. But without further delay, let me go to the Clip Studio machine.
Oh, look at that. That looks great, Rob.
Hey. Oh, thank you. Working on things, the setup, all that. Let's see. This is actually not the first demo. So let me flip over to a different tab. Let's see. I happen to be using something that's newish to me as well. A little thing from the holiday season that showed up, which is the Huion Canvas. Was it the Canvas 22 Plus, I think, is the model title. Anyway, so I am working with practicing with this thing too. It's been a while. I've been using small tablets for a number of years since my my 12 Wacom 12 UX or something. Just sort of wasn't so happy anymore. But yeah, here is this project I've been working on. So Guitar Fretter, a little bit of background. Guitar Fretter is a video game I made some time ago and have made many updates since, right? But it's all about making it fun to learn the note positions on a guitar fretboard by turning that memorization into a game. And I haven't really updated the brand of it or the art much in the last 10 years, right? Little bits of here and there with the icon and stuff like that to launch the app. But I'm doing a refresh, an update, in part to make sense because I'm splitting the game into two things. I'm making a free version and keeping the paid version. Always a puzzle. That's another interesting topic. Like when you have apps out in the marketplaces, how do you make it easy to, let others discover you and try what you created and all that? Different marketplaces make that, easier or not. Anyway, so that's where I landed. I'm making Guitar Fretter, and then there's Guitar Fretter Free Play. What you see here is the original Guitar Fretter logo, and now I've been working on a couple of things about that logo. It's like what am I trying to say? It's like the characters. Why do characters matter and all that? Well, I don't know. It's someone to put a little bit of narrative. So I'm going to sprinkle a tiny bit of narrative more than what's implied in Guitar Fretter. So it's like clearly that you've got this penguin and this guitar, and they're in a video game. And if it goes well, they're happy, and if it doesn't, they're saying "ouch," right? But anyway, so little bits of that, and this is me updating their design. So here's where here's the work in progress. Both up. If you notice the that's an update for the text and the actual those characters. So compare Guitar Fretter, right? You see the style of the writing.
Mm-hmm.
Small change, but significant. And that's going to be a demo here. And then also the characters showing that the cute look is something I'm still wanting to retain, but then I'm looking to refine that a bit. So here's something, and I'll just show you. Scroll back in time with my my sloppy layer management here, and you can see. So I've got certain things separated out. And if I go back far enough in time, I think you will start to see, I should get rid of this, get rid of the background and that. And so, and get rid of that. And so see different things I was experimenting with and whatnot, but let's get rid of the new folks up front. Boop, boop. And boop, boop. And the first thing I was going to show is how the these stages of refinement for those characters started with doing a sketch and trying to think, well, what am I trying to say? And then looking for what's the strong pose what's what captures the essence of how they're feeling and what might be exciting to look at. All right. So now I'm trying to find. So here you go. Here's the two layers that are really subtle, where it's I'm getting closer to where I want to go. But you see there, this penguin especially is a little bit taller. So I'm there's a compromise between this really, it's almost cute and grotesque if you really think about that penguin's anatomy, right? But it worked. But it's time to refine it. So looking back, so you see the difference between those two. Let's go into this one, and then if I do this, what's this tool called? The operation tool. Oop. Now I had these lines that are close to where I want to go, but not fully. And because, of course, celebrating once again the vector tools in Clip Studio Paint. So you can have a layer that is like a raster layer. It's made of pixels. Everyone, like if you're not familiar, pixels just a grid of there's information on or off of a block of color in a particular position, and then vectors where you use this other thing. And so if this is hidden, like the Clip Studio Paint's UI is super customizable, and I've been puttering to try to figure out what's working for me, and this is totally work in progress. So if stuff gets lost, you can always do workspace, reset to default. I'm trying to figure out my own, RS, Rob Stenzinger, illustration profile and stuff like that. Anyway, it's work in progress. And so that way it pops up more consistently and has the changes that I've emphasized and adapted by moving palettes around and this and that. Anyway, side topics, Clip Studio Paint, life. Not willing to get a Clip Studio Paint for life tattoo, but feeling good about it. Nothing personal,
right.
Celsius. You know what? That'd be a high sponsorship level. Anyway. This all right, so editing these lines. So that's a story of like, well, different kinds of layers and the vectors versus and then vectors are essentially line position information. A lot of people just say vectors are math instead of blocks of color, and that's a fair enough description. So this tablet interface is really sweet, but it's not a touch UI. That would be kind of the ultimate.
Okay.
So I'm using old muscle memory where it's like I have a keyboard to my left to do some of these things. Then of course the other thing I can do is you just use the navigator. Whoop, whoop. That's a pretty powerful thing. And it lets you do the classic, hey, let's flip it, flip, and all that.
Yeah.
To see how your stuff looks from the other side. So anyway, back to the vectors thing. I started to just nudge and tweak and then go right into specific like vector segment points and slowly make the leg essentially where I want it to go. And I think if I use a selection tool, I discreetly edit that. I think there's a way. I'm 99% sure there's a way to like just select those things more efficiently, and then start to move them around. Nope, that didn't work. All right. Here you go. This is me fumbling for my keys.
So at the bottom of your tool palette, right underneath the word balloon tool, are some more Bezier point editors. The toolbar on the left side, right underneath the word balloon, the far left, all the way over where you got your magnifying glass.
I'll switch to a camera view that helps with this.
Okay.
So if I go to this one, is this helping out with? Nope, that didn't work. All right, it's fair enough. Sorry about that. Let's. We could have seen me moving around the screen a little bit better there.
Gotcha.
I got a camera above this, but anyway, work in progress. So what do we? Where do I go?
Your far left toolbar, like your main tools, your magnifying glass, hand, way at the bottom there, above your color picker, above the black and white boxes, or color, like right beneath the word balloon. There's some more point tools that you can use. So that's where your pinch vector line tools are, and you can like just grab like.
There they are.
Yep.
Ugh. Seriously.
So you can like grab just like portions of it, and
this is the. That's so much easier.
It's. I would just say it's more intuitive. It just feels like it's an intuitive way of messing with vector lines. Because with the pinch vector tool, you're literally just like pinching the line and moving it around without diminishing the quality of the line. So.
Well, are you? So all that. What it is, it's a different interface. You see, all those points are still there.
Yeah.
So whatever the brush tool did to create that initial path. This is exposing a way to edit that path that is meant to feel more natural.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. It's so funny because I'm like, I know it's around here, can't find it, and I'll just keep working. So there is, and of course the way I was working was now you see those actual points.
Yeah.
not as sort of, just grab this doesn't feel like I'm using a brush. This feels like I am now micromanaging something, right?
Yes,
It doesn't, this is a different part of my brain doing that work, as opposed to, what is that tool called? It's just called,
I think it's just pinch.
Correct line.
Is it really just called that? That's funny. It used to be called pinch vector.
Called correct line. If you hit Y, that would be the shortcut for that. Okay, sweet. I always like to do that and like hover, and the most popular tools I will get a feel for by boop boop popping around. That's the advantage of having a keyboard on the side too. Trade-offs. Ideally, keyboard and touch interface. Someday. All right. So, all right. Anyway, so that's that. So through that process, I ended up getting, this closer, seeing the wiggly wobbly. I ended up getting the character to essentially still cute, but breaking a little bit out, trying to give it a more plausible structure. And not even because anyone gave me that feedback. It's because as art director of this project, also I wanted to do that. I feel like it sets a path for maybe other characters showing up and having a repeatable body drawing style and stuff like that. So anyway, there you go. That was and then the other part of the demo. I'm going a little slow here, but the other part of the demo is looking at that text, right? And doing text in a way that let's see, where's my background? There we go. So why not? I'll use this and then whoop, the navigator tool. It's not too bad to zip around that way. Otherwise, I do like to hit space bar and gives me the hand tool, and then control plus and control minus. But okay, so free play edition. This is. You have a question?
Yeah, it just the Skype videos have suddenly gotten very, very fuzzy. So I wonder if you need to turn your camera on and off in order to get it to sync again. We usually capture our video through Zoom, and because we're doing art demos today, everybody, we switched to Skype because with the NDI connection, you get a much better, higher video quality. But it's got its own trade-offs with regard to the way it buffers and syncs the audio that we're still working on.
Wow, that looks like hot garbage, Jerzy.
Yeah.
It's
better than it was.
I suddenly went. Yeah. Okay. It is really. Wow.
It got really bad just for a second. It was right when you switched off of your demo with Pick and Crunchy and went to the logo. It went fuzzy.
This is like you suddenly fired up your Super NES and you're like, oh, I have Skype on my Super NES, and this is what I would look like.
So let me mess with my properties on the Skype input too, just to be a.
All right, so I could. This demo doesn't require high resolution. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got way worse. Oh my goodness, this is. Yeah.
It got worse. Skype is like, hey, I'll give you a switch to flip, and then I'll do whatever.
We give it a second to catch up. I just turned on hardware acceleration in my OBS to see if it will help at all with this. But yeah, actually.
Yeah, this is a Skype doing a Skype thing, essentially crunching the video down,
and this is something where I thought, yeah.
So this would be also like you could pretend that I'm on, I don't know, the moon, and this is the best bandwidth I got, and look at me, Clip Studio Paint on the Moon demo. Yeah, I don't know. Just soldier on, do a little bit more.
Or we could switch to me for a little bit. How about I do a demo? But yeah. Okay.
So sure. Sounds good.
what I'll do is, so we looked at like the vector inking and the cool way that we can modify the Bezier points in the path that's plotted when you do vector inking, and how you can edit that with like fairly natural feeling tools, but you can also get in there and like really micromanage the lines, as Rob was saying. I'm going to switch to my video now.
Go for it.
I can find my Clip Studio. There we go. Okay, so here's mine. I've been working on a comic recently. I've been doing a few live streams about it, and even though I'm working with a fairly simple approach where I'm not drawing a whole lot of backgrounds in it, I am doing some, like, these backgrounds where there's these funny computer terminals that are all at weird angles, where I'm trying to ape this fluoro dairy kind of design aesthetic, which I've been chasing my entire life. But yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So thank you for asking me to clarify, because it drives me bonkers when people do that on podcasts, and I'm so busted right now. It's Fluoro, Floro, Derry, Dery, and he was a background and concept designer on the Generation 1 Transformers cartoon. And he had a way of rendering Cybertron and alien worlds with all of these marvelously counterintuitive angles and swooshes to make it look like something that I'd never seen before. And it gripped me when I was a child, and I've been after it ever since, So like this kind of computer terminal here, where like you have the screen at this really odd angle facing down at you. So like you would be counterintuitive looking like almost straight up to look at the computer screen, and then the keyboard at like a right angle coming out of the wall. So it's almost like a Pac-Man mouth of a computer. Like take your laptop and put it at a 45-degree angle to the wall and work that way. Like that's kind of stuff he would do. But then like also the way he would like just render all sorts of architecture in his backgrounds. I love it. So yes. So Floro Derry, brilliant concept designer. Yes. First. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. No problem. Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Because I actually have gotten comments from Rob's audio got dropped out of the mix, and they couldn't. Oh, Steven Stonebush couldn't hear your question. Now your audio's gone too. Oh, yeah. Rob's audio is gone. Man, we're having all sorts of trouble today. All right, let's put the guest audio on here. Let's give us a sound check, Rob.
Hello, I am Rob Stenzinger.
There we go. You're back in the mix, as far as I could tell. Yes.
I'm back. You thought you counted me out, Skype, but haha.
Skype.
Commenting
Skype.
about Floridaries was a question, I guess, that was missed.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There we go. Steven Stonebush says you're back. Thank you, Steven, for letting us know, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I've been messing with a lot is the ruler tools in Clip Studio Paint, particularly, and this one is not like a revelation because like this exists in other apps, but man, does it make my life better, is the symmetrical ruler. I don't use that much, but when I use it, I'm really happy. So like in this particular case of this character's face, where they're looking straight on, you can just take it, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key so it makes a nice straight line, and I'm just going to drag straight down the center of her face. And just like you would expect, it's a symmetry ruler. So as I start drawing, I'm drawing on the left side, right, of her face, but it's copying it over on the right side. So that just speeds up penciling. Now, when I ink this, I'm actually going to ink it on paper, so I won't be able to use the symmetry ruler for that. And I think like the natural sort of characteristics of my lines will give it a more organic feeling and not quite such a replicated feeling, because that is a concern that I would have, is like, does this look too symmetrical? right? Because in real life, we're not perfectly symmetrical. But some are more than others, but you get my drift. So now I can go through and I can very quickly pencil in this without, and I'm like literally getting double the work done. So that's one ruler that I really enjoy, is the symmetry ruler. And then you got to make sure if you're working on one layer.
How about the placement of that? Sorry, Jerzy. So the placement, where you put that made all the difference, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if I put it over here, it's going to copy like with that line, that ruler as a reference point of where the center is. So if I start drawing her other parts of her helmet or like part of her mouth, you can see that it's just copying it over there rather than perfectly splitting her face. And if you work on one pencil layer like I do, you got to remember to either turn the ruler off or delete it entirely. You can turn the ruler off like when you select it with your operation tool. You get these little handles. The dark blue circles indicate how you can rotate the ruler, and this little white circle toggles it on and off. You can tell what's on because it's like a purple color. When it's off, it turns green, and that little white dot it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but it becomes a little like crossed out symbol, like sort of like the Ghostbusters kind of idea. So either turn it off or delete it if you're going to use other rulers, because otherwise that will interact with your other rulers. You can also, at the top of your screen, there's this option here that says snap to special ruler. That's and it's not giving me the hover over in the way of screen sharing it. It's in my top bar in the let's see, where is it? It looks like a bowl with a handle sticking out of it. And when you toggle that on and off, that activates and deactivates your ruler, or rather it tells your pen to obey the ruler. And then the other ruler we've talked about is the perspective ruler. And so I'll make for a drawing like this, I'll use a number of perspective rulers. I won't just use one. So I usually rough in the computer or the background element, and I determine my first vanishing point. You do that. Let me do that again so everybody can see. You just like basically click on the screen and drag, and you can determine what the first vanishing point line is, the line going to the vanishing point, what direction it's going to take. And you click and drag for the second one. And as you can see, if I move the second line higher with relation to the first line, it moves the vanishing point to my right. If I move it higher on the left to the line above, it moves the vanishing point to the left. And you can move these after you've drawn them. You can I just usually throw them down, not terribly precisely, and then you can use your operation tool to move them about by grabbing that white point in the center of the line. And then you use the blue anchors to adjust the vanishing points. And then you can, with the perspective ruler, you can put in some more vanishing points. Make it like a 2-point perspective, which I'll do now. Match it to the top of the computer and to the other parts of the computer, right? Which I haven't actually, now that I look at that, that's not right. I need to put in one more vanishing point for this part of the cube of the computer. And I'm going to match them to these lines roughly, and I can always adjust them afterwards. And then now it's just going to automatically, snap those lines to that perspective grid. I turn the perspective ruler off by toggling that option at the top, the snap to special ruler, which is a little bowl with the handle sticking out of it up at the top of your menus, the very top of your screen. I'll toggle that off so then I can do the rounded parts real quick. And you can see how this speeds up, drawing objects in perspective. And I'll just quickly zap out those lines, turn the ruler off, do those curves, turn the ruler back on, and continue zapping out the lines. So between this and the vector erase tool, if you are penciling on a vector layer, man, oh man, do you have some fast drawing going on. You can see I don't have to be really careful about where I move my pencil. It's just, the lines just sort of come out as long as you're generally in the right place. And boom, we're already making a lot of progress, right?
Yeah, so that's amazing. You're not having to slide a ruler around a physical page, pointing at lines pointing at dots that are the vanishing points. It's interesting. You're not actually manipulating the point, the vanishing point. You're manipulating indirectly by changing the angle of the line, the ruler, right?
That's a great way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, that breaks my mind a little bit too, but because the vanishing points are probably way far away.
They're way
there
off
they
the
are.
page. Yep.
Is that actually the vanishing point? Because you zoom super far.
I zoomed way out, and then I selected the ruler, and now you can see where these lines that I'm hovering over right here, like that are like sort of just off of the top right of the page. That's your horizon line. The way I've described these vanishing points, which is like counterintuitive, right? So like that's another thing. Is like it would have been a lot of trial and error on my art table to get this figured out, to do that computer. It takes only a few minutes to do it when you're doing it in Clip Studio Paint. So, and you can, if I hover over the ruler, or rather the horizon line. Oh, actually, this right there is this ruler is the symmetry ruler I used earlier. So I'm going to go back to my horizon line. You can actually right click on this, and it's not showing the drop down. Rats! I wish I should be doing a screen grab instead of just like sharing my Clip Studio source.
All these little variables, right? So you saw the tooltips on my screen because I was capturing an entire monitor.
Yep.
Right.
And I'm not. I was actually just capturing the app. So there's the difference. So if you right click on it, you get an option to like horizontalize the eye level, and it will actually adjust the horizon line. So now that it's horizontal, and then you can also readjust your vanishing points by grabbing the points or by manipulating the actual the lines that go to the points. So you have a couple different ways to go about it. Whatever way works for you, whichever feels the most intuitive. And you can also lock the horizon line by right-clicking on it and then move the points. Like, so once you have the horizon line, that's exactly where it used to be. And like you can see, like once I start messing with the actual vanishing point handle, the line that goes to the vanishing point, you can see it's starting to move the horizon line all over the place. But I can go back to it and click on there's right click and then there's drop down, and you can say fix eye level. That's one of the options. And now when I try to move my vanishing point, it's going to keep it locked into that horizon line. You can see it moving horizontally across the screen.
Wow.
So that's a tool that just like, made my life a lot easier. It's one of those things like the ruler tools in Clip Studio. I mean, there's one more that I can do real quick. Then maybe we could take a break and go back to a couple more demos. How does that sound to you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
The last one is like, this is if you really want to get persnickety, like if you're like really uptight about like how the lines look on your page. Like let's say you get like in the roughs, like this guy's head is just like magnificent and I don't want to lose that line, but I want it to be one smooth contour. There's a curve ruler and it works just like making a Bezier curve. You just click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. So if you've done any illustration in vector design programs and then double click to finish, you'll be familiar with this. Oops, come on. I have my operation tool set to click on rulers and on frames. So now you can just adjust all those curves. I don't do this as much anymore because, as we can see, this is already slowing me down. Instead of just drawing the line, I'm spending all this time like preparing myself for success. But suppose you're making something like an important asset for a game that's going to get used a lot. Well, maybe it's worth doing that little bit of investment. So now if I touch my pencil to that line, it locks me to that line. I can't draw, I can draw like the other, it'll adhere to the other rulers, but as soon as I get anywhere near that line, it's not going to let me deviate from it. So you can make custom curve, like basically like French curves in Clip Studio Paint that are customized to your drawings. And then when you're done with all your rulers, you can go to your layer palette and you can right click on the ruler icon in the layer, and then a drop down appears and say delete ruler, and then all the rulers go away. And now you can just go back to just drawing freehand with abandon. So
if you don't just delete the rulers all at once, you can toggle them off individually, right?
Yeah, you can keep them if you want. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, once you get like a little adept at using them, it becomes like really, it doesn't take much prep to remake them, in my opinion. Like I'll often delete them off of my roughs and then just like reapply them to my pencil layer. So like we're looking at my roughs right now, which I'm going to go in and actually I'm almost done penciling this one. I can turn on my pencil layer. There's like the finished pencils. So anyway,
super cool.
So what do you say? You think it might be okay to take a break real quick and then come back and do a couple more demos?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Let's see if I can do a demo. If Skype's like, okay, you could try again. I would love to do a lettering demo really quick to finish that other. Yeah. That was like the second part of my other demo.
That sounds great. Okay, so we'll see if Skype buffers enough while we do. It's looking clear enough. Actually, it's looking about as good as Zoom when I look at your Skype window. So it'll at least be that good. But we'll come back in about a minute and a half and we'll do a couple more tools that we're excited about in Clip Studio Paint. But before we do that, we got to thank some people who make this show possible. And that's the people who support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/LeanIntoArt is the website. What is it? It's a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. If you believe in me and Rob and what we do here at LeanIntoArt.com, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. And I want to thank 5 people who have been doing that, supporting us on an ongoing basis. Jodels Pox. Thank you, Jodels, for believing in us and what we do. You can find Jodels on Twitter at JBombArtist. And Nate Marcel. Thank you, Nate, for believing in us and what we do. You can find Nate on Twitter at Great Sea Monster. And Sophie Lawson. Thank you, Sophie. You can find Sophie on Twitter at Sophie Lawson Art. And Spencer Hallam. Thank you, Spencer, for supporting the show on an ongoing basis. And finally, Robert Clemens Jr., who you can find on Twitter at Rob Clemens Jr. These will all be linked in the show notes, by the way, so you can find these people because if they enjoy the show, that's why we shout them out, so that you can find each other as fellow leaners. You can join them all at patreon.com/leanitoart. We will find all the shows we make, as well as the extra leans, the shows we record only for people who support us on Patreon. Those posts become an open mic thread where you can talk about whatever you want in a safe space with fellow leaners and get you access to the Patreon-only channels of the Lean Into Art Discord. And once again, the invite for that is in the show notes for this episode and every episode. Patreon.com/LeanIntoArt. Thank you to everybody who supports us there. It means a lot to us.
It really does. Thank you so much.
All right.
Hey, look at that. Maybe another demo.
Well, let's hurry and get some music in here quick so we can do this.
Quick. Oh, drink a little Z. Woo. I'm doing some hand dancing. All right.
Let's see this lettering demo while we can.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, not to build it up that much. That ruler demo, Jerzy, you gotta turn that into a workshop. Yeah. That alone there's some deep magic, and I think it will help lots of artists. All right. Even that section is illuminating, but yeah. Anyway. Doing a random unrequested vote for that would be a workshop. All right. Okay. So I did a quick doodle. Like let's say I want to write the word free, right? So this is about lettering and trying to have some nuance and idiosyncratic quirkiness, but yet some consistency within itself. Because like when you see a font, there's the letters are typically very consistent as far as like where the top is, where the bottom is, where the middle parts are, and if there's a mixed case, like this top of the R is going to be near the middle part of the F and all that, right? Like there's a lot of relative spacing that if you're just doing this, if you're writing by hand, you may be able to pull it off, maybe not. And this is where this is an approach I used to start to build up the lettering design. Not saying like what you saw in the beginning. Like, so here's, let's see. Yeah, we are way zoomed in. So here's where the lettering sort of started, right? And in that, little bit of wobbly, I'm an indie game developer, look at me style. But then, I'm looking to refine that a bit. So, okay, anyway, so let's say I have this kind of plan in mind, and I'm working on now this drawing. So let's go over that in I got to select the appropriate layer, and let's make a vector layer. So now, boom, magically the brush I have has been turned into a vector brush. And so this is a little bit like, I imagine one could use Jerzy's demo and this and combine them. Because in a way, I'm creating some perspective constraints by doing this style. But it's sort of like it's a false or free perspective, right? That so what I'm doing here is, so I boxed in that entire you know, the word is going to appear within this space. And you are seeing my desk cam now too. Cool. All right. That's another reason to sponsor the show, because, you know, we are adventurers fixing stuff on the fly. And let's see. So let's so I'm trying to like get the shapes here. It looks like this wild spider webby, too many things going on kind of line, right? So, but let's now, if I just tap on the other side of my my pen, I'm able to swap to a different tool, which is actually the eraser, which is the vector eraser, and I have it set to do the erase up to intersection, right? So pretty sweet, where all of a sudden I'm trimming away these things, and I'll just continue the trimming to get rid of the stuff that I don't want as part of that letter. And all of a sudden, like, I have something that fits that design I just described. It's idiosyncratic, and like it's in my imprint, right? There's no other font that looks like this. And this is true of you too. If you do this kind of thing, it's going to turn out like your style, just right there. So there you go. There's 2 letters of free of the work in progress so far. And I, once in a while, if I do that little tappa on my stylus, it will then swap the tool. Then I'm stuck in the eraser and I go, undo. But so, oops, yep, look at that, stuck in the eraser. Isn't that fun? So now I will go, no thanks, I'm back to the pen. And I did this quirky leaning with the ease. If I'm going to do that leaning, then I would want to have it match this roughly the R direction, right?
Right. Yeah. The angle of the top part of the R.
Yeah. And then I'll just kind of make the ease sort of eat up that space where there's this flow of, but it's a flow of intentional shape relationships, right? Between, you know, how this E changes based on the R, and then this E's next to that one. And let's just see how it turns out. I'll wrap this demo up really quick. Whoop. And then whoop. And let's see. And we'll make the middle of the E's consistent, and then we'll get the bases consistent, get rid of the stuff we don't want, and keep on. So it doesn't matter like, oh, I went over the R, and, you know, that's fine, because vector eraser. And then once in a while, I actually will just switch to the eraser, so I don't have to keep pushing on the pen. Oops, look at that. That line didn't intersect fully.
Well, you grab your pinch vector and drag that line over the line. That
would be a good idea. I did a cheat where I just added a little more to the line.
That works too.
It may add some slop. So in coming up as follow-up to do a cleanup step to this, I could, you know, find those extra unnecessary vectors and clean it up even further. So that's a first swing at it. There's a little bit of wonkiness to it, but it has an internal consistency and style. And that's a way to letter with the vector brush tool. And like you could do this for, well, visualizing sound and stuff like that.
Totally.
But it, of course, yeah, gives you a certain thing. So there you go. That's my second demo. All contributing toward the new logo for Guitar Fretter.
Now, and that is an important thing, is that, like, I think Clip Studio, one of the byproducts of using Clip Studio Paint, because its text tools were not awesome when it, like, I want to say even like 3 years ago. They're getting better, and their dialogue lettering tools are terrific and extremely intuitive. Still not, I would say, compatible with the way a lot of offset printing happens. Like when you do awesome. This happened with Rockets, is they want the lettering on all of the text on its own 1200 DPI vector layer. So they want you to do the lettering in either Adobe Illustrator or InDesign, something like that. So when I turned in the Rockets pages, like we did the balloons. Actually, I think I did the balloons in Illustrator. That was like the last time I used Illustrator. But like, so you could do all the balloons in CSP and have that as an actual layer that you give to the printer, like give them like a Photoshop file of like, here's all the art, here's the word balloons, and then here is an InDesign file or an Illustrator file of just the dialogue text. And it's because they want it to be only on the black plate, and they want it to be 1200 DPI so they can get as crisp of lettering as possible. So when you do Clip Studio Paint, you can export it as a PDF, but then the lettering is going to be merged with the balloons, and it's going to be, it's going to have CMYK, or if you convert it to CMYK, it's going to have CMYK colors in the black, which is a problem when they print, because if anything goes a little bit off registration, the lettering is going to look kind of fuzzy. So... So like,
it sounds like a printing procedure process that I wonder if it's nuanced based on companies that you worked with, or is this based on, because their production line on how they go to print, and that what you're describing, it totally makes sense. But I know, I mean, Clip Studio Paint is used in the manga industry, and stuff goes to print a lot.
Well,
there, so
yeah, and actually, this Boulder and Fleet Mining for Trouble, which you can get at books.jdros.com, everybody. The lettering was all done in CSP, and it printed just fine, right?
Which, hanging a lampshade on that, and it's like, well, different companies, different procedures. So the apps you use for your art asset pipeline, creating, something toward final work, totally need to be informed based on where they need to go next, and whoever you're working with, and their limitations and styles and process.
Right.
So,
So
that's an interesting gotcha though. Cause what if you did all your word balloons, and then I don't know of an easy way, cause Clip Studio Paint, so if we're throwing out wishes for Clip Studio Paint, another wish I would have is let's build in more automation and put an API in there. And let me, like, if I did that, then let me extract it and let me know the positioning and all this kind of stuff. Because I mean, that's what I do exactly that for laying out screens in Guitar Fretter, for instance, where I interrogate the layers. We talked about that a few episodes back. And I use a Python script to get now I use a Python script. Back in the day when I used Adobe's tools, they have scripting built in, right? So I used it. Well, I think I don't know if they call it JavaScript, but it's pretty much JavaScript, ECMAScript, whatever. They may call it Adobe script. But they let me interrogate the layers and get the size of the assets, export them, and their position and all this stuff. Anyway, so if you can, it's not like it's the perfect workaround, but it creates the path for working around that, right? If there's programmability built into that, into your art tools. Yep. So that would super awesome. That would help you if you're like, oh no, I lettered it this way, and maybe there's a code way to.
And the second part of that is they would need CMYK support as well, so you could actually make your lettering only on the black channel, right? Whereas right now it's RGB, so that black is going to be a mix of RGB. So there's two things it needs, and most people in comics have been begging Clip Studio, like they have been most vociferous that please give us CMYK support in the future. So I imagine they're working on that, but also an API, being able to script something like that would be pretty great. And Rachel Ross is in the chat saying that would I guess that would help with translation too.
Good point. I wonder if that's part of that some companies' process. So they're at like one or many steps closer to making international versions of a work.
Yep. Probably. That wouldn't surprise me in the least. Okay, you ready to do some more demos?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So let's see. We did lettering. Well, while your video's looking great, let's take advantage of it. And like, what else did you want to? What else have you been working on? Because one of the things that I saw when we were looking at your CSP setup was the animation bar was open. I got rid of that right away when I started using mine. But now that I think about
I had it gone, but now I added it back because I have a need for it.
Okay, what is that need? Let's find out.
All right, well, let's go there. Let's see what happens. Okay.
You roll the dice, everybody. You pay the price.
I don't even know which link in the chain to be jokey about and sassy. You know, it's like, who knows where the things are falling down. But okay, so let's say, all right, this is the old demo. Nope, not that demo. How about this one? Animation. Okay. So I'm experimenting with. So currently, the characters in Guitar Fretter are still images, and then I procedurally animate them in the code. I have two things that add a lot of life to them, in my opinion, where there's a breathe and a wobble, right? But that doesn't replace frame-based animation, of course. Animators probably. So I would bet somewhere out there's frustrated guitarists who are also animators that are like, this is a cheap. You got to fix that. And my answer is I'm working on it. But honestly, those folks are they haven't voiced their concerns compared to the folks who want lefty flip. Lefty flip. All right. So lefty flip is how Jimi Hendrix played a guitar. Okay. All right. That's when, so it's like, it's designed for right-handed, strumming, left-handed fret positioning. But Jimmy was like, whoop, flipped it over. All right. So here we go. Here's a character that where I could probably, because of the magic of multiple desk cameras, I animated this character in where'd he go? Undo, save me. All right. So, I'm too many frames ahead. So I'm jumping around too much in my layout. So I made this little animation rough as heck, right? And this isn't even the one I'm going to use in the game, but I wanted to experiment with low stakes, right? I need to see if this tool could do its job. I want to have maybe 2 to 4 frames of animation to give so much more life to the creatures coming down the screen that you're doing the matching in Guitar Fretter, right? And I've found, for me and my skill level in animation, no better tool to prototype animations than something on iOS called Rough Animator. So Rough Animator, let's say, boop, boop, why not? Here's, like I've shared one or two of these on Instagram. I'll share this one. So like check. What can I could go to that camera full screen, but basically you've got this really simple, touch-based interface that lets you say, like, for this drawing, have it be 1 frame. This drawing, have it be another, 10 frames or 12 frames, and so. You that adds up to, you can do a pretty quick illustrated flow of ideas because you don't have to do a ton of drawings, and it's really like this looks in a way like a pretty, I don't know, no frills app, but if you practice with it, it's you can really quickly animate ideas. And so I've got a few dozen little animations I've done with that tool. And one of them is this little character. So if you export out of that, you can export as a series of images. You could, turn it into a little movie file. I imported a movie file in Clip Studio Paint. So all you just do file import movie, right? And that's all that happened in this project so far. And then what did I? Then I turned. I went in scrubbing. The movie gets imported into this timeline view, right? And then this extra palette within Clip Studio Paint. Like without it, you're not thinking about time. You're just dealing with a still image, right? But so far so good. I am not. I'm at. What is the stage where? I joked about finding my keys with the other stuff. In this, I'm like, I don't know if I don't even know what keys are, honestly, at this point. But as far as with Clip Studio Paint, I've dabbled with animation and stuff, but like, so I have this loose mental model in my head and vocabulary of things I want to accomplish, but I'm still figuring it out. So what I've succeeded with so far is export from my other app, import into Clip Studio Paint, and then you can essentially right-click on frames in the video, and then you can turn it into it could be the first frame or the last frame, or you could do new animation cell, and a separate cell is just a separate illustration, right? So what you saw is another layer popped up over here, and I don't want that. Oops! Wow, undo, save me. Undo and undo. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now so think about this art flow is in the end, I want this to be in what's called a sprite sheet, which would be like a whole series of these little characters together in one big image, right? And then I'll load that sprite sheet into my video game and then configure it so it displays one of them at a time in sequence, and that's the animation, right? Mm-hmm. But so for right now, I was able to solve some big problems by saying, here's the rough idea of what I want to do, and now I can just use my drawing tools and make stuff happen. And of course, let's see, I have not the right tool. Once again, undo, save me. So here we go. You're just, using a pencil as a reference, and I'd be figuring out like, what do I want to really convey here? And if you think about an animation sequence, there's a ton of different ideas. I recommend looking up the 12 principles of animation. It'll give you a good background. One of the books that I had growing up that inspired me for drawing was Preston Blair's widely known book, I forget what it's called, Cartooning and Animation. And so I kind of grew up thinking about animation and cartooning at the same time, which I don't know if that helped or hurt anything. But it's.
I'm looking up the books that you're talking about. Animation by Preston Blair. Learn how to draw animated cartoons. Is that it?
I think so. It's been republished multiple times. I can pull my copy off the shelf easily too here. But cool. Yeah, I thank you for pulling up the book. So the idea would be then, now in this frame or this cell, interesting. Yeah. So this cell, then you can adjust what I like a lot is if you're prototyping something, it's nice to not have to draw it a bunch of times. And it seems like, because of how when I went into this video, that it contains the position sketch of that penciled animation, but it also contains the position in time as far as when the cell changes, which is something I was able to prototype in the other app, right? So that means when I scrolled through my imported video and I set that as a new animation cell that popped in my layer palette,
Well, that also gave me timing again. So it's like the timing I set up in that other app is still here, which is interesting for the prototyping process. Not interesting as far as turning into a sprite sheet, because what I'm going to need to do then is export this as separate PNG files.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and then this. I don't have onion skinning here. This is one thing that's throwing me off is I need to see that. I need to see my frames, and let's see what button. It has to be here. Enable onion skin. Waha. Nope. That didn't happen.
Where
I did
are you
something
on the timeline?
that made something weird happen. So let's see what undo can do. Ah,
there you go.
Onion skin. There we go. Because otherwise, you just teleported and you don't know where you're at.
Right. So yeah. Your layer palette is covered up by your video of your hand. So I just want to verify or clarify for myself. Right,
I can.
No, you don't need to turn that off, because it is useful to see where your hands are as you're drawing this stuff. But I just want to make sure I understand. Like when you're making new cells in the animation palette, it's also making new layers in the layer palette. Correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
It looks like it has a special folder called Animation Folder.
Okay.
So that's like a quirky reuse of the layer palette.
Okay.
But interesting.
That's actually, going back a pace, that was how Adobe ImageReady used to work. I don't know if you remember ever doing like animated, like buttons and things for websites in ImageReady. It would use.
I never did that in ImageReady.
Well, this is very similar, so it's hearkening that for me. So anybody out there who used ImageReady like 15, 16 years ago, now you have the shorthand to get involved in animating in Clip Studio Paint.
So I noticed that I think that I would like the characters' eyes to move a little bit more, because if their body is going from this starting to flex to be able to bring the wings up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to have some opposites, so the wings are going up and the arms are going down. And I haven't decided what to do with the legs, so let's have them continue to proceed backward with the effort. And the mouth, I would think, would go up, not down. All right. So then now I have just 2 frames. Even that would be more interesting in the video game, like flap, or like with this character you'd see for a few seconds. And then among a few other versions of this kind of creature coming down the screen. So there you go. 2-frame animation.
You're at Nintendo 8-bit now.
Well, it's you know what? I'm at PlayStation 1, pal. Because I'm including the quality of the streaming too. So
that's true.
Factoring that in. But no, the art, yeah. So 2-dimensional art is so timeless, because you talk about those different systems. There's games like, think about something like what would be for some reason I played a lot of Nightmare Creatures on the PlayStation. And but like though, as much as I had fun with that game, those characters they don't stand out to me, because it was this early days blocky, rough, low palette, low polygon, kind of shapes and whatnot. Anyway, whereas an animation, even when it becomes pixelated, that's 2-dimensional, it still has, I think, more timeless life in it. But
I think so.
Yeah. All right. That's my demo.
Speaking of games, so yeah, it's looking like CSP is a pretty robust tool for doing game work too, not just comics.
Yes, I would say, yeah, and there's extra steps to turn that asset into something that I can use in the game. But most other tools in the pipeline would also have these extra steps, because it's essentially now turning a group of PNGs into a sprite sheet that I could then easily refer to in the game, and not that big of a deal. But it's like a little bit of an administrative step, and the job that like Clip Studio Paint shows up and does its job incredibly well because of repeatable quality of results of creating the assets and refining them. Like maybe I would end up feeling it was good for rough draft animation, but I'm not fluent enough yet in there. So it might earn that job as well.
Well, that's awesome. Yes, I feel like we're doing a good job of celebrating this tool. Okay, so I want to make sure we have time to also talk about our 2-minute practice. Is it cool if I do a quick, not a demo, but more like showing off a feature of CSP that I've gotten a lot of use out of?
Yeah, please. That would be awesome to balance out the universe of demos.
Okay. All right, so let me go back to my Clip Studio. Here we go. Okay, so a tool they rolled out in a couple updates ago is the Quick Access tool, which is that weird little circle with an arrow pointing through it in the upper left-hand corner of your tool palette in most like in a basic installation of the application. As Rob was talking about earlier, it's really easy to customize the layout of Clip Studio Paint to like match what you need it to be, and you can save those layouts with what do they call that? Is that under Window?
Workspaces?
Yeah, window and workspaces. But if you do like a basic installation of Clip Studio Paint, you have this button called the Quick Access, and is that visible on yours, Rob? I can't remember if I saw that on your screen.
The Quick Access.
Yeah.
Where's the button?
It usually hovers above your subtool menu. So like on the left-hand side of your screen, you have your main toolbar. That's where all your tools, like your lasso tool, your pens and brushes and so on. And then just to the right of that is your subtool menu. And that's where often like all of your brushes are kept, and like the settings for like brush size and different like depending on the tool you choose. But at the right above those, in that little toggle switch to open and close your subtool, is this option called Quick Access. Now what Quick Access is, it's sort of like a macro for I wouldn't say auto actions, but it's like tools that you refer to a lot, and tools that might sometimes be very nested in your application. So the one, for instance, you got these panels measured out on the page. How does that work? How do you make panels like that? So very quickly, you have an actual frame tool, and let me hide my frame tool my frames real quick. And let's say I start by drawing a square or a rectangle, and that purple area is area that's masked out. So if I make a layer in there, and you see how it turns light purple, if I start drawing in this layer, I can draw right up to the edge, and it's going to mask out whatever crosses that line. So this is like your margins, your panel borders, but it's one big one. And you can, if you go to in your frame tools, there is a panel divide frame border, and you can sort of just like click and drag, and it snaps at like when it's perfectly horizontal. It snaps at certain angles. You can change how to what degree it snaps to different angles, but you just like chop up the page using that tool into multiple panels, right? But supposing you have a situation where you want to, I've got this bottom panel measured out now, but this top one I want to measure out into 4 equal panels. I want to divide that top box into 4 sub panels, right? Well, to do that, it's Clip Studio makes that really easy. If you just go into Layer, which you can't see because my menus aren't being shown, but if you go to your menu and you go to Layer, and then underneath that is Ruler Frame, and then there's a third option to choose that is Divide Frame Border Equally. It'll let you divide this box. You got to select the box first. Select the top box with my operation tool, and I'll go to, again, Layer, ruler frame, divide frame order equally, and it comes up with an option that you can't see because I'm capturing the app instead of doing a screen share, but you can divide it by 2 panels equally, horizontally and vertically, and then boom, you've got perfectly measured equal panels. But like you have to go to a lot of submenus to find that. It's like kind of a path to get there. So the quick access tool lets you just, I could save that as an option just to like divide frame border equally. I've got that highlighted at the bottom of my quick access. So now I just click on that and then it gives me the option and then boom, well, it divided everything because I had everything selected. You got to be careful what you have selected. So I have to select the top, divide frame border equally, hit OK, and boom, now I just did it without me having to like go digging in my menus. So anytime I encounter something in Clip Studio Paint where I notice that I'm doing it more than 2 or 3 times and I have to go into a lot of submenus to get to it, you can add it to your quick access. And you can add it just by right-clicking on it, and you can go to your quick access settings where you can add more things. So like, for instance, when I finish penciling this page, right now it's a certain color blue that is like sort of, what would you call it? It's sort of the out-of-the-box blue that comes with Clip Studio Paint when you change a layer into non-photo blue. Like I can toggle it back to black. I'm actually drawing in black ink, but you can, in the layer palette, you can change the layer color to non-photo, well, a blue. It's not non-photo blue. In order for it to be non-photo blue, to make it easier to remove, I often change that blue to 30% cyan, and I've got that saved as an option in quick access. Just like change my color to 30% cyan, and then I go up into my layer property menu, so where the layer color is being defined, I hit the paint bucket, and now it's turned all of that layer into 30% cyan. Right. So rather than go into my color picker or my color palettes and find 30% cyan in one of my many, saved sets of colors, I just save that as an option in quick access. Same thing with something else I notice I do a lot is, rotating the canvas. Like when I do a scan of something and it'll be sideways. Well, now you just like, come on. Oh, this is a big file, so it's going to take a second. Clip Studio is like, I'm sorry, I'm doing my best. Yeah, so change canvas size, and then even like, make sure I got my brush pen. You can save different pens that you use a lot in this quick access, and you can create different sets. So there's different like tabs up here, so you can put different things in different quick access buckets depending on the type of work that you're doing. So you could have an animation quick access, you could have a digital painting quick access, and so on. So I found this to be super useful, and you can toggle it in and out as you need it because it's right there above your subtools. So it's sort of, again, I would describe it as it's a more instant and rapid sort of version of, like, it's not auto-actioning. Auto-actioning is like when you make like a batch series of actions. And it's like, okay, like first turn this into grayscale, then resize it this many %, and then export it as a PNG, like you're telling it to do successive things. This is just like a tool or a menu that it takes digging to get to. You can save it in quick access.
It sounds like it's a way to unearth, like, put things buried in the menus. And you can just sort of take a little piece of gold and put it in a shortcut. And that sounds incredibly useful. And I did do some hunting for it in my workspace for Clip Studio Paint. And it was actually on the right side of the screen next to the palettes and stuff over there. Okay. So it's that, I don't know what the heck it is. If it looks almost like an arm over a record, or like, I think, hey, remember the Voyager had a laser disc on it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to look like a Q, but with an arrow defining like the diagonal line on the Q, indicating this is your cursor, I think.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I think it should.
That symbol, like I took some hunting to find, right? And sometimes like I can't find a palette. It'll be on my screen and I can't find it because it's there's a lot of options and stuff. I'll have to go to the window and start to toggle things and hunt for it there. Because I would bet it's in the menu.
Yep.
Yeah, probably.
So, but that's another one that could possibly be like a quick like 10-minute workshop on that for saving for future uses, like different ways to speed up. Because like you can also I'll go back to my Clip Studio Paint. That bar at the top, you can customize that too. Like all the things that I'm highlighting right now as I hover over them, you can customize what all these are so that you can put the tools that you most need there, right? So like I've got mine customized so that I've got the pen I use the most there, the watercolor brush I use the most there, and the eraser I use the most. And even like the selection of magic wand tools. But like, so I don't have to go hunting over to the left side of the screen to get the pen I want. And as a matter of fact, one of the nice things about Clip Studio Paint is you can also just like hit the tab key and all the interface goes away except for that top bar. So now I've got like my most requested tools there at the top. And as long as I'm working on the right layer, which I have to go to in my layer palette, then hit tab, now I've got even more screen real estate to do the work that I want to do. So there's a lot of little things like that in CSP that I've slowly been discovering.
Yeah, it's a deep toolkit. It's I don't know, they're trying to please a lot of audiences with it, and I think they're pulling it off pretty well. So it's especially, and I think I say that from the bias of someone who wants to draw more than manipulate other types of things.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do photo manipulation with. Like, if you have a lot of experience with Photoshop. I mean, I've used Photoshop for like 20 years, and so the intuitions I have about where things should be in terms of like, well, how do you manipulate the levels? Well, Clip Studio has it, but it's not where you think it is. So that's another thing that I put in quick access, like manipulating levels, other kinds of like image resizing, things like that I would normally. So anyway, I think we did some demos. I think we did some demos, some extra tips in there, a lot of love, no sponsorship, all that. We did it all. All right. Well, then how about we take a break and then like minute and a half to thank some more people who make the show possible, and then we'll come back and we'll look at what we've been practicing with our 2-minute practice this last 2 weeks. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds excellent.
Okay. So in about minute to 2 minutes, we'll come back and talk about, this thing we call the Lean Into Art 2-minute practice. But before we do that, we got to thank some more people who make this show possible. Those people are us. We make the show possible. We work hard on lots of different kinds of things and bring all that hard thinking into this project called Lean Into Art. And the thing that I make that I hope you will check out is actually it's another podcast that I co-host with my buddy Hoover, and it's called the 4 Million Years Later podcast. And it is a Transformers Generation 1 watch along, where we watch an episode every week and then convene to talk about what we saw from the perspective of people who grew up with the show and never fell out of love with it. But then we compare our experience with the episodes from that childhood perspective and that adult perspective and do some really thoughtful story analysis. And the episode that we just dropped today is episode number 49 called Sea Change. And it's actually a love story. That one that when I was 11, I was like, no love in my Transformers, please. This is a war story. But now as an adult, I think it is not only a charming story, but they bring in this really cool metaphor called the Well of Transformation, where the Transformers meet the species of humanoid, like organic creatures who can turn into whatever they want, because the Well of Transformation strips away the body. It dissolves the body until only the essence is left. So they can take whatever form they want, because the essence is what matters, not what you look like. And it's such a concrete and easy way to understand this whole don't judge a book by its cover, even to the point where I feel like it's incredibly forward thinking of like, like the two characters even say to each other, it's like, I never thought somebody who looked like you could love somebody who looks like me, and then they go into the Well of Transformation. They take on whatever kind of forms they want, I fell in love with this episode, and it's so funny. This happens again and again, like episodes that I loved or I hated as a child, I love as an adult, and episodes that I thought were really fun as a kid, I watched as an adult, and I'm like, it was missing a little bit. And there is something to be learned in that dichotomy, and I'm still puzzling through it as we go through. We're halfway through the series. You can find it at 4millionyearslater.com and in podcatchers everywhere. So, ready, Rob?
Yeah, I'm ready. I love that show. I honestly, 2020 has been greatly helped for me because of the 4 Million Years Later podcast.
Oh, that's kind of you.
It's like this, it's nourishing, it's relaxing, and it's like your storytelling, educational curiosity, workout, considering characters and plot and all that. It's wonderful. So yeah, it's a great sweet spot for me. Yeah, I've listened to most episodes more than once. So yeah, that says a lot. There's plenty of other stuff to read and look at. But 4 Million Years Later should be on your podcatcher. All right. And really quickly, if you're interested in like how I share information and describe things and whatnot, well, I teach some workshops. I've got a variety out there, but two that are I think really important to highlight, that you can find in a couple of different places. So an easy place to go to get to where it makes sense to you to pick that up or purchase it would go to robstenzinger.com, click on the store link. And here you are with my online workshops, drawing user journey maps, and then customizing your next creative challenge. Each of them is a great resource to do some problem solving. You've got drawing user journey maps. You're going to try to, it's kind of like what Jerzy just described about 4 million years later and the experience of being like taking on different perspectives as you grow through different ages. Drawing user journey maps helps you take on perspectives of all kinds of things, your audience, different kinds of people in your audience, your team and the people you work with. You value different things. Success means something different probably to someone who's an engineer than someone who is a designer, than someone who is in business and what have you. A journey map that you do collaboratively can weave everyone's perspectives together, and you see what's important to work on next for a given project and make a difference for your audience and even the people who work together on the thing. So that's what that workshop's about. And then customizing your next creative challenge is all about making the practice and experience of like working out through, hey, 24-hour comic day, NaNoWriMo, pick a thing. Any kind of thing that says, I like the game, the idea, the temptation to join in on making, just finishing a product in this kind of, maybe it's the community that you like, maybe it's the tools, techniques, anything, or just the idea of saying, I'm going to commit and get there across a finish line in some chunk of time in a certain way. Well, there's still a lot to it. Creative challenges get put into the world by all kinds of different folks. Like Lean Into Art does Art Sound Off every November is when we celebrate that. And just because that creative challenge exists doesn't mean you have to do it exactly like they're saying it should be done or the examples you've seen. This workshop lets you really dial in and figure out what makes sense to you and your goals and how do you want it to feel to do that effort. Are you making are you doing this for the experience? Are you doing this for the community, or to learn, to practice, or to make a product? Any of that or all of it could be woven together in the plan that makes it worth your time. And that's what this workshop sets you up to do. So both of those are available on Gumroad and Skillshare. Easy links to get to that on my website, robstenzinger.com.
Super. And I put the link into the chat for everybody, so you can click on it right now. You don't even have to remember it. The last thing we hope you'll check out is the Lean Into Art. Yeah. The last thing I hope that you'll check out is the Lean Into Art Discord, and I posted the invite link in the chat as well. The invite link is in the show notes for this episode and every episode. We have a forum where you can come hang out with us and chat with us in a time-shifted manner and even comment on the show as it streams live in the Discord. Or use it as the chat when we're streaming live on wherever you watch us on Twitch or YouTube or etc. So thanks to everybody who has been hanging out there and sharing with us. We have 3 public channels and 3 channels that are for people only who only support us on Patreon. Or only for people who support us on Patreon. Bad grammar. Please join us there, the Lean Into Art Discord. It's been a lot of fun to talk with everybody there. Okay. So, is it time for that thing that we call the 2-minute practice?
It is definitely time for 2-minute practice. Hey, Jerzy.
Hey, Rob.
What's up? Like 2-minute practice. We try to do this microcast special segment on the main show. Either way, you can take part in this exploration of learning stuff is wonderful, but then it can get so expensive if you well, maybe you take on creative challenges, or you do I mean, even trying to add it to your goals or whatnot. But then like, what if it didn't have to be so expensive to learn and try new things? So here you go. That's our approach,
premise.
is to try things with the 2-minute practice. Just take 2 minutes out of your day. And we all know that 2 minutes just sort of fly away, like all over the place. Take, just a little bit of a scroll on one of the social media sites, do one less of those, and here you go. You got time to try something new.
Yeah, like let's take 2 minutes out of our doom scrolling and put it towards something that feels a little bit more nourishing. And last 2 weeks, we did a brainstorm, excitement, and encouragement practice. And then you came up with this idea for this time around: gather inspirational work and ask yourself why. Have a 2-minute session with yourself when you gather some things that inspire you. What is it about them? This is practicing that thing that we've talked about in the show a trillion times, the analytic eye. The moment something makes you feel something, ask yourself what, why, how, what's it doing? Because in there is probably useful stuff that will inform your art. I would argue it's informing your art one way or another, but it's cool when you can like think about it, name it, articulate it for a variety of reasons. Right. So, what'd you wind up doing for your sessions, Rob?
Well, I did about 4 sessions, and they meandered a bit, because it's like I opened a little can of worms with this practice for me, where I captured a variety of inspirations that I thought I just let them come out of my head, and I didn't ask why as I was capturing them. But I mean, things like Linda Barry, Scott McCloud, Bruce Lee. And of course, I'm thinking of their works also, but I'm not doing like a great bibliography while I'm doing a 2-minute practice. I've got a timer going, and I'm just letting ideas come out of my head and not editing. And things like My Hero Academia, One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, Robotech Season 1, Scott Pilgrim, and Invincible, 2 comic series that... there's lots of other comics I love and enjoy. I mean, Ghost Rider, but didn't come to mind when I wrote this, right? And many others that are more recent. But that's a funny thing about this kind of recollection. So another thing, music, Unleash the Archers, and games, Devil's Crush, Card Fighters Clash, Thunder Force 3. Let's see, Street Fighter 2, on and on. Like, there's a variety of games that I've played that, like, I could think of probably hundreds that somehow influenced me in some way, where I'm like, just way back where I thought, well, what if I do some, what if I make video games as my career, right? And that's kind of where a lot of things started for me. Anyway, so on this list it hit me in my second practice session. I'm like, this is a weird list. This doesn't remind me of other times where I've captured things that have influenced or inspired me, right? And it's but some things are here and some aren't. So like, second session, I was really distracted with this idea and I just went with it. That's kind of how this practice went. Each session, I was distracted by something about this thing, and I went with it. So I was like, what is that old inspiration exercise I did? And that was this influence map thing that I think we both did this a few years ago.
Yeah.
This templatized, hey, wouldn't it be fun to show gratitude and hat tip and celebrate all the stuff that's infused in what you make, right? And I'm like, yes, it's totally like influence map, inspiration. That's same page for me, really. So I looked at my old influence map, and there's things like, I don't know, Fooly Cooley, Strong Bad, Sea of Monsters. Oh, there's Robotech. A comic called Meridian, Dragon Ball Z, surprise, bunch of video games. Anyway, that kind of stuff. And it was this was a little more thorough in some ways because it wasn't like a 2-minute practice exercise. This took a little bit of hunting and picking and choosing and pruning. And hey, by the way, look at that. There's in my influence map, which isn't on the screen, that Preston Blair book I took a photo of and is in there. But
I'm gonna see if I can find it in Google image search.
There's I did put a clip in our show notes too.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, I'll grab that.
I had a heck of a time finding it on the internet, and because I know I shared it, but can't find it.
There we go.
Yeah. So there you go. That's that influence map exercise, and so I hit go on session 2, and I'm like, it's really bugging me, like this list versus that list, and what's that about? So, and I'm like. And then that's what I did in session 3. It's like, well, why did that change? Because in session 2, I succeeded in just sort of finding and then looking at that, where I just, I could do a quick search on the internet, and then I searched my hard drive. By the way, how I found it was this. So in Mac, for some reason, the command line search in Mac is better for me than just using Spotlight and the Finder search. So if you use a command line, you can use it's called MD find. So if you do MD find some terms, and then if you have a strong clue as far as what kind of image or thing you're looking for, like a PDF or an image or whatever, you can put in quotes, kind : PDF, kind : JPEG, right? And that's what I think I found that did. And it was like, influence, and it was like, I found it, boom, on my hard drive. It really, but that's all I had time for then. I was like, okay, at least I see this thing. Anyway, session 3, it was like, well, what's like, how did these two things relate? Like, is it just like top of mind versus more stored in the background? And I realized that so this was one way of asking why, but not really what was framed in the initial practice. And it's all those influences are still there, is what I realized. It's not like they no longer matter, or I can somehow I've cut off that part of my brain or something like that, or it fell out or it's gone. I had big feelings when I looked at that thing again, and I'm like, no, these all matter. It's just motion, time, things changed, what's close at hand, and it's okay. And so in a way, like, and there was one obvious thread from Dragon Ball Z to One Piece to My Hero Academia. And it's like, well, not really, rocket science figuring that one out. But, but I do find it interesting if I could do like describing to you why each one of those is important or has affected me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that does evolve. Like, in my opinion, My Hero Academia is as a writing voice, something I want to be affected more by, right? Because of the clear characterization of so many different characters, so incredibly well done, like with interesting nuance and depth that there are emphasized primary characters. And then, of course, it's doing this whole serialized entertainment with big stakes, superpower type stuff, right? And all those shows are doing that. But My Hero Academia is doing it in kind of a way where their serialization is more refined, right? It's not like, and like I have a workshop that I may dust off called Writing and Drawing Serial Comics, The Dramatic Reveal, because I care a lot about like how in the heck are these things affecting me so much, where I just, I know they're going to leave an open question, and why do I care and all that. And anyway, My Hero Academia is doing a lot of more nuanced kinds of questions it opens, and the rhythm of how it does it and when it does it is so much more refined. And anyway, session 4, I try to get back to asking why again. And I think I'm kind of covering this a bit, where it's sort of like part two of that, there's the feelings of the old stuff and the new stuff, and a little more nuance about what stands out about the new stuff. And what really sort of came to the top was this combination of Linda Barry and Bruce Lee being really important right now because of the kind of book that I'm working on. And it's like all this influence is welcome. Feel great things and love for all of it. And because I'm focused on a particular thing, what stands out as an influence that's what stands out. And I would say for Linda Barry, it's like this combination of flexible, expressive, nature to the extent of chaos, but thoughtfulness to the extent of great philosophy, right? In like how she's able to like weave together these complex tapestries of experience and ideas so joyfully and clearly, and yet with so much variety. And then Bruce Lee, it's from reading the rereading parts of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, I think. Yeah, that's what that is. So anyway, which is really poetic and incredibly practical. It's poetic and practical, and it's for its application, for its intent. But I think it's one of those kinds of expressions, one of those works when someone has ideas that are so portable, it carries across from drawing or kicking, right? I mean, it's both. Both practices, one could find applicability in when Bruce Lee is describing getting caught up in your own thought as opposed to being in the moment and committing to the action and all that kind of stuff. I don't have quotes ready, but it's that kind of feel that comes to mind from that. Okay, so that's where I went with this.
Yeah. So. Interesting that you had sort of a meta journey in like to get to talking about your like things that inspire you. So that I just think that's worth like restating is part of the premise of the 2-minute practice in general, is that like you have a new relationship, or at least it sounds like you have a more explicit relationship with the things that inspire you, and where their volume or temperature fluctuates based on what else is happening in your life.
I like that summary. Yes. I mean, it's they're still with me, but like which one stands out, it depends on what I'm near.
Yep. It doesn't seem that dissimilar from like, there's like a George Harrison album, Dark Horse. It's one of my favorite albums, but it's like, I only listen to it and I'm feeling really bummed out. Like it's my go-to. I don't feel good about life right now. I need to listen to this because he doesn't feel good about life in that. And it like really connects me with that sadness in like a really like visceral way. But like as a general rule, I don't like just like, oh, I could listen to that anytime. Like it has a specific like function in my life, right? Like I think there's things in my life that are like that. Like they are whatever I'm in proximity to in terms of thought, intention, emotion, that becomes something that I find to be extra, or the meaning is more direct and it just happens and I don't have to look for it.
It is a lot like that. It's that not everything in this tapestry of influence has to be always at 100 in, opacity. It can fade and be in the background and all that. And so like, yeah, picking up that's interesting. An album for a functional thing that's also an emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also love what's kind of implied in there, and you can, correct me for sure if I'm totally going astray on this, but like it points to this idea that like identity is a very layered and nuanced thing, and it can be informed by so many. You can carry so many different pieces of different things, and the identity when we talk about it, I think this is something that is worth discussing now. Is this idea of like identity isn't this like you can't hold up the influence map and say this is who I am, right? It sounds tidy, and it sounds like it's perfectly serviceable when you're like in those years where you're trying to discover identity, right? Like, well, I'm this now, I'm that now, and that kind of experimentation is like healthy and awesome, and like one of the most wonderful aspects of being a young person. But like that's an exploration. It's incomplete, and there's parts that become sort of invisible to you, and it's worth investigating this every once in a while to find out. Like, well, when people say like speak your truth, what is your truth? Well, I feel like an exercise like this could be part of like plumbing that, you know.
Well, that's another pretty interesting connection, and also a giant door you just pointed at. Because you can kind of get near, like feel like, okay, I know, I feel kind of ready to say like, what is my truth? But it's like, it's made of a combination of things, of right now and where I'm at and what I'm next to, and what happened just before. And I don't know. That's really cool. Interesting.
This is only top of mind because I just finished a book recently where that was the theme of the book. It was made for high schoolers, and the whole premise, the thesis of the book is like, I'm experimenting with different groups. This new group has taken me in. They say you're one of us. Like, well, I am, but that's not all that I am, right? And like that's the revelation that the character has. That's not all who I am. I am part of you. I'm part of this. I'm part of that. So I immediately thought of that when you were describing this journey you were going on of like, well, but did I leave anything behind? You know, well, no, it's just, it's not, the temperature isn't as high on that right now because you're doing other things. And it's so funny. Like when I think about I did 3 practices, and I have such a built-in habit now of trying to simplify everything down to like give myself a whole bunch of constraints so I only focus on one thing. So I asked myself, okay, how am I going to make this manageable for me? Because I can like look for inspiration happens all over the place. I'm like, okay, well, let's just pick 3 different media. And my original goal was I was to do multiple entries of the 3 different media. I said, okay, so let's do something that's like story related, something that's music related, because I knew that would be another challenge that I don't feel like I'm particularly fluent in talking about music. And then literary, like general story. It can be any kind of story, film, animation, comics, but then something that's like more like books, prose, right? And just pick some different names that you can talk readily about. Don't think too hard about it. Just say the first thing that comes to mind when I say animation. Go. And I noticed that in the past couple weeks, the G.I. Joe Real American Hero miniseries has been on my mind a lot, and it has to do with some projects that I'm working on. It's kind of I don't need to get into the weeds on that, but I don't spend a lot of time with the G.I. Joe cartoon series because I think there's aspects of it that like just don't feel as like there's parts that I feel like ooh, there's a lot of punching going on here. But there's like a lot of like this kind of like very specific to that particular media, that story, a kind of joyful exuberance. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll pick that 2 minutes. I'll try to unpack if I can write in words, And so I captured, what I noticed I was capturing things that would start out as very like one layer of it, and then before the 2 minutes was out, I hit another layer. So I was pleased with that. So like G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, what is it that makes that tick for me? Well, it follows the story structure of 3 remote and deadly locations, exotic but clearly dangerous only if you don't respect them. Like that. Like I was like, okay, well, am I into exoticism on this? Or is there something else? And I'm like, no, actually, in every instance when they go to the remote and dangerous location, the Joes are always respectful of the place. Don't touch anything. Don't disturb anything. This isn't ours. And the Cobras come in and wreck up the place, and they set off some kind of dangerous monster trap, And let's see, I captured joyful characters who seem to love one another and are annoyed by one another. They both love and they drive each other crazy the way families do. Big, larger than life villains, not necessarily powerful, but big personalities. And then I captured, something about the music combination of jazz, electric, and orchestral. And then for the music entry, I also went with, okay, what's something that's in my life right now that's very current? And I just got, for the holidays, this new Stan Bush album. You're familiar with Stan Bush, right?
I am familiar with Stan Bush. I have I recommended an episode of your show, Saturday Supercast, where you interviewed Stan Bush to a friend because
that's
he
right.
also loves Stan Bush. And anyway, yeah,
Yes.
and it is a really fun episode and a great interview. And yeah, he's got that sound. Like what would you describe Stan Bush's thing? What's his jam?
80s hero knocking the bad guy down and living his dream kind of storytelling. It's going to have a little bit of like conquering your enemy, conquering your opposition, but also like having like this hopeful sort of raspy voice scream at the future. So as a guy who does a Transformers podcast, of course, he's on my radar because he did the Transformers the movie soundtrack, at least like some of the more memorable. You Got the Touch, which was parodied later on what was that movie, Boogie Nights or whatever. But like, I love it unironically. And anyway, so I thought, okay, well, I have spent a lot of time thinking about Stan Bush music. Like you pointed out, I've interviewed the man. I can probably access some thoughtful and useful words in 2 minutes or less. And sure enough, it was a very low risk way for me to talk about. If you asked me to talk about like Tchaikovsky, I don't know. I love Tchaikovsky, or like choral music. I love choral music, but it'd be hard for me to pin down like one piece and why I like it. It would take more than 2 minutes. So I went to things that I knew I could talk about very readily. And then for the prose, I went to C.S. Lewis because his books I've read the most times. I've read a lot of different books, but he has a small subset of books that I've read multiple times that I can really articulate quickly what it is about them that moves me. But I did find some new information in there. It wasn't just me just sort of reciting like the Manchurian Candidate. This is what I love about C.S. Lewis. It was I found some things in there that I'm like, oh, the urgency of the ticking clock let me bypass my inner critic and inner editor to get to some interesting ideas. So, so anyway, yeah. I feel
that,
like
you have a little thing in the notes here about the Stan Bush. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to go into in that, where you mentioned how maybe the ticking clock helps you get past some kind of friction. I mean, so sometimes, I don't know,
I've got a huge hang up with talking about music because I feel like it's one of those things that I encountered some very explicit and particular shaming about, like when I was and this is me like putting my baggage on the table. This is totally my baggage, my trauma, and I'm owning it. I know this is my deal and I got to get the heck over it because nobody else cares. But like at a very particular point in my life, I encountered like a specific kind of shaming about like my relationship with music because I just didn't have one, like at a time when it was really important to have one, I guess. And so it became one of those things where I was like, well, music just goes on this shelf. I don't talk about that with anybody because I don't think about it right, And so like when I chose music, I was like, it's like you put a trap in the water for you, Jerzy. You're gonna go in there waiting, and it's gonna be fun for you until that trap springs. So I felt a little insecure about even writing thoughts that I knew I didn't have to share with anybody, right? But the thought of putting something on paper that felt like such a tender place for me in terms of you don't have the words to talk about this beautiful thing that everybody else experiences in a way that you don't experience. I'm like, well, maybe if I talk about something that I have a lot of relationship with, I can get there a little faster. And like you said, the ticking clock meant that I didn't have time to go like, oh, this is scary. Nope, just throw the lines down and stuff will happen. You'll see. So that part of the practice too, I feel like it was just a reaffirmation of something I do in my classroom, something I do in my work. It's like every new project, that fear creeps in of like, this is the time when I'm going to find out that I'm a fake. Just put the lines down. It'll start to come together. Just put the lines down. Get in there, So, yeah.
I love that part of the mechanics of this practice and the meta of this practice, where you are building a skill to try stuff that could be really uncomfortable or confusing, or you have different and that may be why you picked it, because it's stuck in your craw and you're annoyed or displeased or loving and confused or something, where it just, that You don't know what's going to happen, but it's 2 minutes.
Yep.
And you know something will happen. You'll be okay after 2 minutes is done. And the something of like the overall creative process, like we're constantly facing our own fears and flaws and quirks and then keep going and keep iterating and building on that. And it's just, we just find reasons. We can find reasons to say like, well, my flaws and quirks and where I'm at, well, that's not excusable. And it's like, well, it is. It just takes, that's part of the practice.
That is part of the practice. So, all right, we got to figure out what we're doing next time.
I'm super tempted to go like in extreme difficult mode to talk about because there was that door that the idea of I couldn't perfectly put my finger on it right now, but if I could hit rewind and replay part of the show where you really were hitting at that
the identity that we assemble through these influences and the allure of holding up that shield of influences. And I don't mean shield as a protective thing. I mean it more as like a coat of arms. Like this is an emblem, and it says this is what I'm all about. And like that's a very, I can see the appeal of saying that, but that is a reductive statement at best. Maybe at worst, I'm not sure, but like it has a reduction in it that is incomplete. So
it's functional, but it's not a full system. And
there you go.
And that can be good enough at different stages, of course. But I think that's a trap. That's probably me being tempted by challenge, and I sense the challenge, and I'm like, challenge is always a reason to do a thing. But maybe not, right? So what if we do something that is playful and like, even though we know the new year is it's another day, the earth rotated again, and we're still, we still are who we are. But like, what if it was like a fresh start kind of thing, like some kind of fresh start themed something, like, I don't know, fresh take on things you drew before, or what are you thinking about this?
Fresh start. See, I thought you were going to say something like actually build on this one that we did this time and say like, can you now take those influences and spend 2 minutes at a go assembling language around your creative identity, right?
See, that's where I was going, but okay. I'm trying to resist my own habits of continuing to crank up the challenge. Like, what if just sort of went off in a different direction? Okay, but that is a strong one. I like the idea. Maybe I like that idea too much, though.
Okay. Well, let's save it for a future one. So based on this idea of new beginnings, what I'm immediately thinking of is how we're both going through a period of planning for the next year. And one thing that I am getting acquainted with, and I have not done as thoughtfully as I could in the past, is connecting with what my big projects are. What are my big projects, my big goals? And I spent a little bit of time writing those out. And I mean big projects, big goals for 2021. So what if we spent 2 minutes at a go defining what those big projects, big goals are? Big projects, what's something that's going to take more than 2 months to do? Big goals, what is something you hope will be different through your journey? How will you be different, or how will the world be different based on what you're going through these different things you're taking on? Write them out and try to capture why they're so important. Why do they matter? And that's more to point toward language to help you in the darkness. When you get to those points where you're like, okay, I'm in the midway through the project and this is terrible and I'm terrible. Well, it might be good to reconnect with those like reasons why, because I think that's that part of what makes that darkness so dark is we've lost touch with that. So what do you think?
I love it. And I can sense a like a potential friction though that I want to just address in the formula of this 2-minute practice. So what I heard is list the goals and then describe why they're important, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to say that what if it was any of the goals that come to mind, right? So because there's almost like a built-in editor, and I try to watch for those when it comes to like brainstormings, right?
Yeah.
If you have an editor that's saying it's only got to be the right ones, it's got to be the good ones, it's got to be the best ones, right?
Yes.
So if just goals come out of your head, goal, why is that important, right?
Yep.
Let that happen without the editor. It would be my recommendation.
Here's language I'll throw in that I use in my classroom all the time. I would say, let's wonder about goals. Wonder about goals for 2 minutes. There you go.
Wow. Yeah. Love it.
Okay. Great. Well,
right.
I'll see you in 2 weeks, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Jerzy.
All right. I think we did another podcast. So that wraps up 2020, I guess. Yeah.
Well, for this world,
project.
for the multiverse of Lean Into Art.
All right. Thanks everybody who showed up for the live stream today and who's been interacting with the show over this past 10 years now, thereabouts. Commenting, subscribing, listening, sharing. It means a lot to us. We'll look forward to doing more of this in 2021. Happy New Year to everybody. We record the show weekly on Thursdays. It drops usually the same day. We collect it as a podcast at patreon.com/leanintoart and leanintoart.com. Until next time, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com, Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com. And I'm Rob Stenzinger all over the internet, even Instagram.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.